Munster edge, tight game against Saracens. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. This one, very close affair between these two teams. Big arm wrestle, lots of physicality in the game. Not a lot of quality in terms of attacking, but still a pretty enjoyable watch all the same. Opening minutes, Munster, they're offside, and then Lazowski, he steps up, pops that penalty over the bar for 3-0 to Saracens. Saracens then, after that, they attack off a scrum. Tompkins stabs a little kick through. There's a bit of a scramble for the ball, but eventually Nash kind of hacks the ball clear. Munster then, shortly after that, not rolling away, and Lazowski doubles the lead to 6 points to 0. And, Saracens in that first half especially really using the kicking game brilliantly. There was lots of variation in the game. There was kick chips over the top, kicks through. There was, putting those kicks just on the edge of, just outside the 22. Brilliant chase for them as well. Really, forcing Munster to try to respond to that. And they really had the edge in that area in the first half. And, especially, with Munster rushing up in defence, those kicks through and the kicks over top as well. Munster were finding it very hard to actually cover that backfield there. And there was a lot of kind of half chances for Saracens as well. And a lot of kind of rushed play from Munster. I wouldn't say it was like panicking or anything, but certainly a lot of rush play from Munster back there. And it meant that, in terms of the response kick, it was just get the ball away rather than looking for space to put it in. And, because of that, then the fact that Saracens were already on top in the kicking game, it just made it even more so for them. And, Munster finding it really hard to get their hands on the ball as well. And even when they did, it was a problem for them to keep hold of it as well. Lots of handling errors from them when they tried to move it. In fairness, defenses are pretty solid from both teams. Saracens, then they get pinged at a ruck. Bit of back chat as well from them. They get marched forward 10 metres. Munster, a chance from line out into 22, but they knock it on, and you really feel like they need to cut out those errors because, so far they've had very little of the ball, and, when it's like that, every chance you get is very, very precious. Saracens do get pinged. Jamie George, handling the ball on the ground, and Crowley steps up, makes it 6 points to 3. Munster's errors, from the restart, I think, it was give Saracens possession in their 22, but then aggressive defence drives them back out of that 22 before they then eventually turn the ball over. And then Jack Crowley, he collects an up and under, little kick through, bounces up from nicely, he gathers it, kicks through again, but this time he can't keep control of it. Almost a fantastic score from him. Would have been one of those ones that just would have been replayed all the time if it had come off for him. From here then, Munster, they win a penalty at the breakdown. It's, very competitive there. Tom Willis almost turned it over for Saracens. And Munster, a chance now, to kick up the line, from about halfway into the 22, but completely, miskicked. It stays well in field, and they lose the chance for that throw in into 22. But they do then win a penalty at a scrum, and they manage to kick up the line this time. They then get another penalty. Sarries taking a jumper out in the air at the line out, and also off their feet at the next ruck. Munster then kick to the corner, go to the maul, and Sarries initially they halt it, but then Munster surge forward again. Looks like they've got a bit of momentum there, kind of jogging a bit, and you feel like it's going to be over for a score. But Sarries had done really well to get back again, and they halt him about 2 meters out, and legally bring it down. Itoje gets in there as well, and then he wins the turnover from his team. Fantastic defense there from Saracens, because, you know, as soon as Munster kind of broke off, it looked like they were going over to score a try. So brilliant from them to make sure that didn't happen. As you approach halftime then, Sarries find themselves in the Munster 22, and they try a little kick over the top. Williams almost gets there, but he knocks it forward. Halftime is 6 points to 3 to Sarries, but Munster have worked their way into the game at this stage. You know, Sarries, which with a lot of possession, a lot of territory, you know, winning all the kicking duels as well, but only with a 3-point gap to show for it. Into second half then, literally not rolling away, Elliot Daly points to the post and just strokes it over from 45 metres, and could have easily done it from 55. It looked like 9 points to 3. Sarries then, they get pinged again for taking the jumper out in the air at the line out. This one was much more marginal though than the one in the first half. Crowley steps up for the penalty, misses it to the right, and it's at the stage now where you think like every point counts, you know, and Crowley hasn't been kicking brilliantly from the tee this year. And, you know, if you're a Munster fan, you're a little bit worried about that in terms of, you know, how tight this game has been, and you know that one kick could make the difference at the end. Then Murray, he's offside from a Crowley chip, and Sarries, they kick it into 22. Munster, though, they get up in the line out and they disrupt it well. There's then Sarries, you know, pushed back, but then a clever kick to the edge of the 22. Again, a lot of time when they go up and they're competing, they're not necessarily looking to kind of, you know, cleanly win the ball. They're just getting up to try and bat it back, and that's what they do this time. And that leads then to a break on the right that stopped just about, you know, 5 meters out. Then they go through some phases, and they're kind of moving from kind of that 5 meters out to 10 meters out and back and forth, as, you know, with each carry, whether it gets a bit, you know, go forward or not. Then they decide, you know, that they're not getting through, so they go back to Burke on the edge of the 22, tries to drop goal, but this one is, you know, well to the left and wide. After that, then we have a seatbelt tackle from Lazowski, and that lets Munster go up the line into the Saracens 22. They move it to Scannell from the line out, recycle it a few times before Coombs then picks and goes. He's through a gap there, and, you know, he makes great meters for them, stop just short. They've got penalty advantage, but then Bleuler picks and goes to score from there. And, you know, we have the first try of the game. Crowley then uses every single second on the shot clock. I think, you know, the referee was very generous, saying that that time was good because the clock was at 0 when he was just coming up to kick it. So it was very close there. But now it's 10 points to 9. Munster in front for the first time in the game. Saracens then, you know, they had much the better of that kicking duel, as I said, in the first half. But Munster, this second half, have been competing much better, and also starting to get their own kicking game going as well. We saw Daly much more prominent in the air, and also with his kicks as well. You know, he seems to have found some space that either they weren't seeing or for them wasn't there in the first half. And it means that, you know, the tactic for Saracens isn't paying as many dividends as it was. And Munster now, in the second half at least, are beginning to edge that contest a little bit. From here then, Crowley, so Munster ran a kickback. I think it was Nash made some really good meters into the Saracens half. They then recycle it, goes back, it goes to Crowley. He puts in a cross kick out to the wide left. It's gathered inside to Farrell. He then lovely delayed pass to Hodnett, and he kind of swerves a little bit, goes through a gap. Looks like he's just gonna go straight over, but he actually trips, goes head over heels, but manages to get back up and over to score. Crowley converts that one for us, 17 points to 9. Shortly after that, then Saracens win a penalty. Lazowski brings them back within a score at 17-12. We then have a loose pass from Haley, and it almost allows Saracens to strike on the counter, but Tompkins knocks on. It was one of those ones where, Munster full out attack. They're kind of on the edge of the Saracens 22. If Tompkins collects that ball, then they're under the sticks at the other end because there's nobody at home for Munster, but it didn't work out for them. Scrum penalty, though, does allow Saracens to go up the line. They go to the maul, but then Ty Byrne gets in there and he managed to force a turnover. And, himself from Munster and Itoje from Saracens, so prominent in those maul defences for their teams and really, taking that weapon away from the opposition by doing so. We then have some really nice hands from the forwards, and that gets Sarries on the front foot. Lazowski then with a lovely pass out to Williams, puts him through a gap. He's dashing into the 22. He's got Gonzalez on his outside, and instead of drawing the defence and giving the pass to him, he decides to actually use him as as a kind of a dummy or a distraction for the defence and go himself. But in contact, he knocks the ball on, and hindsight being 2020 and all that, probably should have given the pass and maybe it would have been a different story. Time running out now for Sarries. They win a scrum penalty, go up the line into the 22. Byrne gets up there to disrupt. Sarries do claim the ball, but it's scrappy. It's one of those ones where they've got to kind of bat it back on their own side. It kind of bobbles around. Somebody finally claims it, but then Munster's defence, able to get them, coming forward towards the ball, whereas Saracens' support is having to come, from the wrong side really for their own players to get any kind of momentum. So Munster drive them back away from the 22. Saracens then, they've got space on the right, but they try to go straight out to the wing when they've got, it's basically a pass skipping two players, but it's clearly forward. And, you wonder maybe a little bit more patience, give another pass, draw a defender and then give it wide. But at this stage, not too long to go. If the pass had been straight, it would have been a great break, and there would have been those other two players there in support for a potential offload and a score, to either tie the game up or, with the conversion to actually put Saracens ahead. But that didn't happen for them. Munster now have the ball again. They got a scrum, they get the ball out. They got a minute left now to run down on the clock. They run down 57 of the 60 seconds left before Ahern knocks it on. Saracens now have the ball, but they've got the ball inside their own half. They're not really going forward. And when they try to move the ball looking for space, I don't know who it was that actually, received the pass, but basically they were... they kind of turned, looking out to the right to see where they're going to pass the ball. And it's one of those ones where, maybe slippery ball, you go to pass and instead of the ball coming across your body, it just shoots forward. And that was it then. That was enough to end the game. Full time, 17-12 Munster win. So we're going to have a quick look at the stats and then we'll talk about the teams as well after that. So 2-0 from Munster, but it's not really all about the tries in this game, because Saracens, they had that lead in the first half, and there were chances that where they were going up the line a couple of times where you thought, well, you haven't had much success really in the 22. Maybe we saw how good Daly was, from the tee, from distance, and there was a couple that were kind of in around halfway. Now they were on the angle, so they would have been probably more than 45 meters, but we know he has the distance. Accuracy, when it's on the angle, maybe could have been a factor, but certainly they could have taken, a few more kicks at goal as well. I thought the drop goal was, not the best idea at the time. especially when they didn't have any kind of advantage coming to them. And it just felt like they ran out of ideas at that stage. So where the tries were crucial was obviously from the Munster side of things, that Munster stuck in there and then they got the tries at a great time because, first of all, nudged themselves in front and then they back it up then by going, just about 2 scores ahead. And it meant that, Sarries maybe felt like, after getting that penalty to get back within 5 points, that they did have to go for a try after that rather than trying to kind of, just chip away at it with more penalties, because maybe they thought if they score a penalty and they got, back within 2 points, maybe they don't get another chance after that. But yeah, it wasn't like tries galore in the game, but the 2 that Munster got, I thought were pretty decent. On to attack then. So meters made 326 for Munster and 265 for Saracens. I don't have the breakdown, but I say like a lot of that Munster, meters were made in the second half, because in the first half they had very little of the ball, lots of errors from them as well. In that first half too, were some errors in the second half, but they cleaned it up a little bit. Carries then 111 to 112, so pretty much dead even on that. Clean breaks 5 for Munster and 2 for Saracens, and that was kind of the difference between the team, was just that little bit more of a cutting edge for Munster. You see that in defenders beaten as well. Munster 13 defenders beaten to 16 for Saracens, so Saracens beating more defenders but not being able to convert that into clean breaks. They're only kind of half breaks, and then Munster were able to come in there, a smother, decent cover defence from them as well. Offloads then 4 from Munster and 7 from Saracens. But again, it wasn't a game where there was fancy offloads creating breaks and tries all over the place. Passes then 118 to 115. Again, very close between the two teams there. Possession 53% to 47 and 52 to 48 in terms of territory. So Munster just about edging it. And again, there would have been a big swing between the first half and the second half, because Sarries, they looked like they had close to 60% maybe in that first half of both possession and territory. Onto defence then, tackles made 120 for Munster, 148 for Saracens. Munster at 81%, is decent. Saracens 89%, excellent. But the thing for them is that, the tackles that they did miss led to the scores for Munster as well. For the most part, very solid in defence, but Munster were able to pick holes a couple of times, and they were crucial. Turnovers won then 6 for Munster, 7 for Saracens. Onto the set piece then, lineouts 13 to 9, both at 100%, but at times, it wasn't clean ball for either team as well. I thought both teams kind of competed well. Munster went a lot to the front of their lineout because they knew that Sarries were competing, towards the middle and the back as well. So they went for that, more guaranteed ball at the front, but it meant that, it was hard for them to use it as a platform to attack from there. No lineout steals from either team. Scrums then, 6 scrums won for Munster, 10 for Saracens, 86% for Munster on their own ball and 100% for Saracens. Munster, again, they looked the better of the two teams, up to the point where the front rows were changed, and then it completely flipped. Saracens were definitely on top after that. On to kicking then. Kicks from hand, 33 to 36, and then meters made just shows you how well Saracens did with that. 787 for Munster, which is very respectable, for a game, but 1,058 for Saracens really is up there. It's up there with, you see that kind of from, Scotland when they're playing well, they get those kind of numbers, and France as well. Two teams that we think about as being, very good to watch in terms of spreading the ball and creating chances, etc. But, people never really realize that those actually come on the back of very, good and solid kicking games from those teams to get them in the right positions and to create, because they win the kicking duels, it means that they have the option to attack from wayward kicks from, an opposition who are under pressure. We saw that from Saracens, especially in the first half, but they weren't really able to take advantage of that, in terms of getting tries. Retained kicks then, 8 each. Again, that would have been, I think, heavily skewed towards Saracens in that first half, and then Munster again recovered in the second half. Penalty goals, just 1 for Munster and 4 for Sarries, and those are the ones that really kind of first of all got them into that lead, and then brought them back within that chance of nicking a win at the end there as well. Rooks won then 88-74, and just 1 Rook loss in the game, and that was by Saracens. 100% for Munster and 95% for Saracens. Mauls then, turnovers 6-7. Again, we talked about it earlier, but Mauls 4 for Munster and 2 for Saracens. Maul success 25% for Munster. Again, I told you played a big part in that. 100% for Saracens, and not like maybe technically, but Munster definitely won a turnover off the back of a maul. From them, maybe the maul was over at that stage. I'm not too sure. Maul meters gained then, just 1 meter for Munster and 2 for Saracens. Discipline then, 8 penalties conceded each, no cards for either team either. There wasn't really, it was a very intense game. Not a lot of niggle in the game, which was good to see, because a lot of time with close games like this, 2 teams really putting on the line, very, very physical. Normally you're going to see, a bout of handbags and wherever, but there wasn't really anything to kind of ignite the tinderbox for that. There were a couple of kind of borderline kind of tackles or clear outs or stuff like that, but nothing that really kind of got anybody's blood up in that. And both teams, pretty decent in terms of keeping on the right side of the referee. So what about the team? So let's start with Munster briefly. So, poor in that first half, but crucially, they stayed in the contest. Only 3 points down going into halftime, having been, the second best for much of that first 40 minutes, improved in the second half, got themselves in front with that, those couple of tries, and then they held on from there. Scrum, good before the subs, and then Sarries, seemed to have the nudge after that. And, this really was an important win for them, and it's going to give them some confidence, because that's been, very lacking for them this year. They've had lots of injury concerns as well, but even when they've had the, everyone to pick from as well, you still feel there's the confidence that was there a couple of seasons ago isn't there when there's a squad anymore. Now, it only takes a few results and suddenly everybody's bouncing again, and you're flying high. And that's what happened to Munster the year that they won the URC. Things weren't going well at the start of the season, and then second half of the season got on a bit of a roll, weren't playing great, but they got the results, and then the performances came after that as well. And by the time they lifted that URC trophy, they were playing very well, and they were getting the results as well at the end there. For Munster now, Franklin's Gardens next week, and that was where the European run ended last year as well. So, can Munster, that's going to be, I think, another big step up for this Munster team is to be able to go on the road and produce, not just a performance, but a result as well. So that's going to be a big test of these guys next week in a pool that is so close now because of the results from today. Saracens then, kicked really well, and crucially as well, competed brilliantly in that first half as well. Second half, they did get some joy from the kicking tactics, but nowhere near as much as they did in that first half. Turned the scrum around in the final quarter as well, which, at least gave them a chance to get themselves into positions, to potentially win the game. Liam Williams, great in the air, but not so much with ball in hand. Certainly a couple of times where, maybe a better decision or better handling, and he might have created, a chance, or if not a score for his team. Itoje, a real menace throughout the game as well. Thought Willis did well. Earl, not as much impact, honestly, in that back row. I thought Coombs for Munster in the second half especially came into it a lot. He was kind of, a little bit lost in terms of just having an impact in the first half, and a lot of that was because Munster didn't have much of the ball, but when they were kind of getting on the front foot in the second half, he was to the fore there as well. Saracens felt lacked the cutting edge when they got themselves into that 22, and it felt like that's why in the first half they were taking their kicks at goal, was that they weren't getting much change out of their Munster defence. And then when it was kind of a 5-point game in that second half, then they were just trying to go for that score, that try that would just jump them over Munster if they converted it, rather than again chipping away from the tee. But now they do have themselves a losing bonus point, which is going to put them in a good position to qualify for the last 16. Generally, both these teams now on 10 points, and generally that is enough to get through. We can't say that yet because there's still the Castra Bulls game to go, and potentially you could have Castra, if they win that, would be on 9 points, and then if potentially then, as I said, you have two teams below them, one on 9 and one on 5, that could both kind of just about pip one of them for a place. But I'd say at this stage, 95% or 90% or wherever, these two teams should be in the last 16 with 10 points, but both will want to kind of, especially Saracens at home, I think, next week will want to end on a high. Munster will want to get something out of that game in Franklin's Gardens. They would love a win. I'm not sure whether they're going to be able to get that. If they did, you'd have to then start looking at them in this competition at a slightly different way, I think, and this pool is so close as well that next week's games, and it's going to be brilliant, I think, they're going to be so crucial in terms of, who's going to be at home in those quarterfinals, last 16 and potentially quarterfinals after that as well. And then, the teams that just about, miss out on that top spot could find themselves going away to really difficult places to try and progress. So next week, especially in this pool, and then in pool 4 as well, are going to be crucial. I think pools 1 and 2, you have teams at the top in those pools that are going to be kind of comfortable for the first and second spot. They still have to kind of sort out which order they're going to finish in. But in these two pools, 3 and 4, it's all to play for next week. Okay, so that's the end of this one. Let me know what you think down in the comments.